Skeeter bites. Yeah, we're live. It is 5:24, so I'm early. I couldn't help it. I was just so excited. Gotta get going. I gotta get back to my live crew and see what's up. Actually, back. I was gone for a couple of days, so that people know I was gone for a couple of days. Went to Yosemite, which was awesome. I had only been there one other time. I went to for a wedding there. And so I got to see very little of it. I think this was mostly during the nighttime, I think, when we were there. But this time we went with family and it was awesome. We got to go see falls that, like, waterfalls and stuff that are just rushing right now, and they just defy like description. It's just so majestic and amazing. And so naturally we got to do a lot of cool things. We were looking for bears. We didn't see any. Saw lots of deer, squirrels, and birds, and all kinds of stuff. I did get to catch two snakes, which was awesome. My son was able to spot them. In fact, he spotted a third one, which we didn't catch. But I caught a gopher snake, and also a first time for me, what's called a Sierra garter snake. And I had never caught one before because I hadn't been catching snakes up in that area. So it was quite awesome. So we got to do that. We brought the my or Milo and Maya. We brought Brady and Bruno, and they were awesome. My son and I stood under the waterfall, not the big one because that would just crush you, but a smaller version of the waterfall. So we went into the water, which is very cold, stuck our head into there like you're supposed to. It was awesome, and the best thing about it was great to see. Everything was beautiful, and that was all fantastic. But getting to spend quality time with your family, that was kind of awesome. We're back from that. We're back from doing that. And it was amazing. A couple other things. The turbos came in, and so I think Jimmy has shipped out the turbos that were on back order. I think probably nearly all of them. The other thing that's going to happen, I want to let you guys know that we have some more turbos coming in, and we have some dual ball bearing versions of both the GTX 3584 RS turbo. So dual ball bearing versions of that, and also dual ball bearings of the even bigger version, the G42, which is going to be, we'll only have a handful of those. So I think that we only have like 4 or 5 of each of those coming in. So if you are interested in those will be here like a week, 6 or 7 days. My guess is all of them will be sold out immediately because the pricing on them compared to the other stuff that's out there. The other thing I can tell you is on these turbos, all of the ones that we're selling, there is a difference between the different versions of these turbos that are being sold. Ours have things that others don't have. And we found out about this. It was a long, drawn out kind of thing. We found out about this, and these are very, very good, is what I can tell you. But most of them that we're selling are journal bearing things, and they work fantastic. And for guys that are looking at the dual ball bearing things, they're a better turbo. They are not probably going to be, some guys buy them for response rate, and that's probably not going to be the thing. Maybe they are a little bit more responsive, but I don't know that you'd be able to measure it. It's not going to be like a change. And I doubt that you'd see a change from a ball bearing to a journal bearing a change in response rate. There would be anything like even an AR change, which is not going to be dramatic, but not anything like a turbo size change. So it's not going to be anything like that. But I think Robert from Force Performance put it best. He just said, look, a ball bearing turbo will, in an instance where you might go without oil for a second, like if you're road racing and you're sloshing the oil around or whatever, that a journal bearing turbo might not survive that because it relies on the film of oil between the bearing to lubricate that. A ball bearing has ball bearings there, and it has some surplus oil, and it has ball bearings, so it would be able to withstand that sort of terrible situation much better than a journal bearing would. So where a journal bearing might go away, the ball bearing is not going to. But please don't buy it thinking, oh, I got a dual ball bearing turbo, it's going to be lightning fast response. No, the turbo sizing is going to dictate whether it's lightning fast response or not. And then the other stuff is just going to be the icing on the cake. Like the little flower, the little rose, when you cut the corner of the cake that has all the good stuff on it. It's basically that. So those will be available. If you're interested, send Jimmy an email and I'll go ahead and I'll put Jimmy's email down. Okay, here's Jimmy's email. So if you guys are interested in those, and you want that, you're interested in a really, really good ball bearing turbo, either one of those, either the 800 horsepower, it's actually rated at 900, but the 800 horsepower GTX 3584 RS, or the G42, which is a 1200 horsepower turbo. If you're interested in either one of those in the dual ball bearing, like I said, we have, I think, 5 of each of those coming in. And like I said, they should be here in the next week, and they'll be gone immediately. So if you're interested in those, please send it to Jimmy. I just put his email up there. Tonight, whatever, I want to talk about, I get comments a lot. People send in messages and send in comments from videos and Facebook and Instagram stuff. Hey, Richard, my turbo combination is not making the power output that it should. And why isn't it doing it? So when I get that comment, or when I get this question, why isn't it making the power that it should? My path toward finding out the answer for this person is always the same. My first question is, what motor is this on? So what is I need to know basically either the NA power output or the combination in which I infer the NA power output. So if somebody tells me I have an LS, a 5.3 with a low buck truck camshaft in it, or a Truck Norris cam, or Chupacabra, or whatever, or a stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, whatever it is, I have this combination. Okay, good. Having run combinations a lot like that, I got a pretty good idea. I'm going to be within 10, probably more within 5 or 2, 3 or 4 or whatever, probably a lot closer than most people. So I know what the combination is going to make. So I got this combination, if it's an LS, or it could be, but we're talking about all motors, so not just LS combinations. It could be a Dodge or Ford, Chevy, whatever. Okay, I have this combination. Okay, now my next question is, what is your turbo size? Okay, my turbo size is this, because I want to make sure that the turbo, did they size it for the intended output? So you got this NA, and I'm running this much boost, and that's going to equate to this amount. So if I got 300 horsepower and I got 14.7 pounds of boost, I get 600 horsepower. And so we use that sort of math to figure out where they are. And then they tell me where they are, and they go, oh, and I'm only making 500 horsepower. Okay, well, let's figure out what that is. What is your turbo size? Some guys, not everybody knows everything about turbos. Some guys are like, okay, I got this turbo. Okay, that's good. Turbos are always good. But all turbos are not the same. Some turbos are little turbos, and the medium-sized turbos, and the bigger turbos, and gigantic turbos. You need to get a turbo that's sized for your power output. So that's the first thing. If you don't have that, if you have a 500 horsepower turbo and you're trying to make 1,000, you're just not going to get there. Even though it's a turbo and it's chock full of turbo-y goodness, it doesn't have enough turbo-y goodness to get from where you are to where they are, where you need to be. It's going to make lots of boost down low. Oh, the boost is falling off or whatever. Yeah, it is, because you have a 500 horsepower turbo on a 500 horsepower NA motor, and it's just not going to get there. It's going to add a bunch of power down low. It's just not going to add any at the top where you want to be adding power. So those are my first things. So the question is, okay, we'll assume we got the NA power output. We have a turbo that's sized accordingly for your desired power output. Okay, that's a good start. Now we can start getting somewhere. Why doesn't it make the formula? Why doesn't it add much power and this much boost? The next question is octane, because octane is going to then tell us timing. So what kind of octane are you running? Well, I'm running this on pump gas. Okay, right off the bat, if you're running it on 91, 93, whatever you have, you're running it on pump gas, you are not going to make the formula. You are not going to be able to run the combination of, maybe you could run low boost, but you're not going to run the combination of boost and timing, and to a much lesser extent air fuel ratio, but boost and timing, you're not going to be able to run that combination of things that you need to have to make this formula. Because if you take a 400 horsepower motor and you run 14.7 pounds of boost and you want to make 800 horsepower, in order to do that, a lot of requirements have to be fulfilled in this middle part. This part's easy, the NA power output. The boosted power output, also easy. if all of the things in the middle here are taken into account. So what you have to have is you have to have enough octane. E85 is the easy way because not only does it add octane, it's going to add power all by itself. So you're going to look like a hero. But even if you just put race gas in it that has enough timing so that you can run the 20 or 21 or 22 degrees of timing that you need to run at an elevated boost level to make the power output, because it wants to make power there. If you're running 29 degrees on your LS NA and you're running 21 degrees at 15 pounds of boost and you got 100 and something octane fuel in it, you're going to get to the number. It's going to be really happy. It's going to be, really spicy. It's going to make good power. So make sure that you have to have the required amount of octane in your fuel to reach that. If you have E85, again, more of the little rose chocolate icing on the cake kind of thing, even better. Intercooling, obviously, you're going to need intercooling. Now, yes, there are guys that are the non-intercooled guys with blow-through carbureted deals are going to argue that, oh, no, I have intercooling because I have charge cooling going on from the fuel. Yes, that's a form of intercooling. It's not as good as intercooling because intercooling and that is better than just that. But intercooling is going to be a requirement for you to meet this formula. There may be instances in a blow-through carbureted application, assuming you got the right distribution for everything going on, that you can also do the formula, especially if you're blowing through an E85 carburetor, which is also awesome, and you're trying to do that, you can do it. But that is a form of intercooling, so you are going to need intercooling to get there. And we talked about the turbo sizing, the NA power output, and then and only then can you start looking at the little things that a lot of guys look at. Well, I think I need a header for this and not a log style manifold. That's not what your problem is. You need a bigger downpipe. Yes, that's always going to help. And especially if you're running a 2.5-inch downpipe and you're trying to make 800 horsepower and you're having that go through, 4 sets of cats and 8 mufflers and all kinds of stuff going on back there. Yeah, that's going to be bad. It's going to be restrictive. But the downpipe size itself, like if you're running a 3-inch or a 3.5 or a 4-inch, that's not the first place to look. Look at those other things first. Look at the turbo size. We know what the NA power output is. Look at the turbo size. Look at the octane of the fuel. Look at the timing. Get the air fuel right. You don't want to be running 9-to-1. You want to be running 11-to-1, between 11 and 11.5-to-1. But that's pretty normal for even on stuff that's non-intercooled and is running on pump gas. You're still going to be in the 11s. You're not likely going to run in the 10s. There's no reason to do that. It's not going to detonate because you're at 11-to-1. It's going to detonate because you have too much timing in it and it's non-intercooled. It's not usually going to detonate because you didn't run it because you're running it too lean. 11-to-1 on a turbo motor, even with no intercooler and pump gas, is not going to cause problems. So the air fuel is much less of an issue than the timing is. But then, like I said, don't start looking at little things. Don't start looking at, oh, my camshaft is wrong for this. No, your camshaft is not wrong. The turbo is just a multiplier. Whatever you have, it's going to multiply whatever's there. So if you did a good job on selecting your turbo or selecting your camshaft for your turbo combination, not necessarily a turbo cam, but you selected it for the other things that you want. And we want the turbo to spool up. We want a stock converter. We want it to be inexpensive. We want a low buck truck camshaft, basically. We want that stuff. So if you did a good job on choosing that and not choosing a gigantic cam, unless you're running it to gigantic cam territory or RPM, then you can go ahead and do that. But if you chose that properly, the other stuff really is just going to come into play. So pick the important things. Octane, very, very, very important. Turbo sizing, very, very important. Once you get those things down, you can put enough timing in it. Usually, kind of good things happen. All right, we'll see what's going on with you guys. That's very important. Very important. Get all of that stuff right on any motor. Rich, what's going on? Everybody missed me. When I was, there's an interesting thing when I was catching the snakes. I didn't know what the Sierra garter snake was. I had never seen one before, so I didn't know what it was. It looked like a water snake, kind of. And so I reached in and grabbed it. I said, "Yeah, I don't know what this one is." And then my mother-in-law, Lisa's mom, said, you didn't know what the snake was and you just grabbed it? I said, yeah, I said, the only thing that's going to be venomous here, I said, it'd have to have a rattle on it. If it doesn't have a rattle on it in California, it's not going to be venomous unless somebody let their cobra go in Yosemite or whatever. It's not going to be that. We can see possibly coral snakes way down in the southern end of California, going into Arizona and in New Mexico, going into that area, the southern edge of maybe Nevada, there might be, but it would be so rare that, and I would know what a coral snake looks like anyway, so it's not bad. I said, so yeah, it's not going to be a cottonmouth, it's not going to be a water box, it's not going to be any of those things, because we just don't have those here. So the only things that we have that would be kind of get you things would have a rattle on it, and it didn't have that, so I knew that wasn't the case. So anything else, snatch. What I was really looking for, and I've never caught one of these either, is I was really hoping that I kind of looked around and picked stuff up and everything while I'm hiking, because I'm always doing that. I'm doing that while I'm driving all the time. I wanted to catch a mountain king snake, but we did not see any of this. Do you need to soak new lifters in oil? Can they go on dry? I would never put them in dry. I always soak them in oil, but I don't ever do it for 24 hours or any of that. Usually when you put them in, you can see them bubble. When they stop bubbling, that's good enough. But you always want lots of oil on them when you're installing them. Something very cool going to happen Saturday. I got invited to the National Corvette Museum by Ken and Kristen. Oh, nice. Lingenfelter. That'll be cool. That'd be awesome. How that goes, man. Whoever keeps copying me, you're here. You don't want people to be cool like you. Maybe being a lifetime member, and they'll be in the new chairs. It's going to be cool. Oh, very cool. I love your stuff, Richard. I honestly would like to see you do an Engine Master style show, but encompassing so much more than just dyno testing. I don't know what else I would do. I'm a dyno test guy. I've been doing that for 30 years, and that's really what I like more than anything. I mean, I do land speed record stuff and things like that too, but primarily my stuff has been all like, let's find out what it does, and so we can show people, so then they can make educated buying decisions on the things that they want to get. Have you ever played with a Coyote? Yeah, I was probably one of the first ones to have a Coyote up on the engine dyno. This was late 2010. I got a crate motor from the guys there, and we did cams, ported heads. I ran a bunch of different intake manifolds that were available back then. We ran a Kenny Bell on it. We ran nitrous on it. I may have run a centrifugal on it also. We ran a turbo on it. I did a bunch of stuff, so I'm familiar with it. South Carolina's in the house. Bobby, what's going on? And by the way, my 5.3 ended up being trashed, so I had no motor, turbo, or twin charge builds going on right now. Uh-oh. That's why I haven't emailed you yet. Okay. Hey, 5.3s are just the wrecking yard away. Richard used to do stuff like Engine Masters. Now he just does this. Wow. Richard still does testing. Little off topic, would be interested in playing with a Godzilla. I have one, I'd be willing to lend you. Nope, don't want to get lended any motors. People who drift keep a secondary oil reserve. It restores pressure as soon as the initial loss of pressure. They use an something. I mean, that's been around for. I mean, it was around. It was a thing even when I was road racing, which is back in the 90s. What happened to the Big Bang K series? I haven't done anything with it yet. Dust off my shoulder. I have a twin 67, 63 on 3 turbo kit, made 1,200 on 22 pounds on a Coyote. Does that sound right? Well, the right 67s could certainly support that. I mean, the two 3584s that we have could do 1,500 or 1,600. I'm 8 minutes late. When I feel boost getting less boosty, I just find my air filter completely clogged. Yeah, that's important. You got to check that. I heard that the no prep outlaws are going to spray nitrous in their pro chargers to cool them down. First season for them to do. If they're spraying nitrous into the prochargers, they're not doing it to cool the procharger down. At least that won't be the primary gain. I've run nitrous in blowers, and it's not good as an intercooling agent, but it's really good for adding power. Porting a TBSS, is it worth it on NA60? Adds 300 to 400 horsepower to the price, but they claim 15 to 25 horsepower. I don't know. I've never tried one that showed power. I did try a ported LS3 when I was back at BTR. We tried one of those. It didn't gain anywhere near that much power. Maybe a Trailblazer SS does. A fast manifold definitely does. 25 would very much surprise me over a TBSS on an NA60. New York has timber rattlers. Yeah, that's pretty common. Lots of them in the South too, in Georgia, in that area. If you're building an NA 6-liter flat top piston motor with 823 and you want the cam to pull 2 to 6,000, well, you're very rarely, I don't know how you're going to be at wide open throttle at 2,000 RPM. So any cam will pull from 2,000, but it's not going to make power there. If you look at, I have lots of videos up on 6 liters, and we ran lots of different cams. And so I gave you power curves for all of those. So you can see, if you don't care about power past 6,000, then it's not going to be a really big camshaft. Richard, big fan, just bought the low buck truck camshaft. Awesome. Put into an otherwise stock 5.3. That'll be good. In a 4x4, that'll be good. What stall converter, if you were to upgrade from stock? 2,500 on a low buck truck is fine. How does the bottom end of a stock bottom end Gen 4 aluminum block 5.3 stack up to the Big Bang Gen 3 stock bottom end? Will it blow at a lower power level? No, the right aluminum motor will go as higher than an iron block. The 5.3 is the lone exception to the aluminum block rule. The aluminum 5.3 are what racers are using to run, I don't know, 40 plus pounds on them. Building a motor, what is a good compression ratio to aim for when building it for boost for 800 to 1,000? The power output is not the thing that you consider when you're talking about compression. You need to talk about the octane first. What octane are you trying to run? So if you tell me you're trying to make 1,000 horsepower with 91 octane, I would tell you not to do that or not to try that, or that at the very least, it'll be a lot more difficult to get there. But then I would tell you to run low compression if you're trying to do that. Building a 7875 Gen 4 6-liter for a daily BTR red hot cam. I have 706 cathedrals or 823. What should I use for a... Okay, a couple things. If it's a daily drive, I have too big of a camshaft in it. I would put a smaller camshaft in it. The second thing is an 823 head will make quite a bit more power on the top, and by the top I mean from 4,500 on out compared to the 706 head. The 706 head will be better down low, so it'll be more responsive. None of that really matters because if you have a 7875 turbo on a 6-liter, that's going to dictate how much power you make. Have you ever seen blue or black racer snakes? Yeah, black ones, not blue. We don't really have blue ones here. Also known as whips. No, whip snakes I've seen, yeah. They're beautiful. We have them in Ohio. There's also a red racer, but they're more west, I believe. Yeah, I caught a few snakes when I was in Ohio, when I was back with the car farm guys. I got to catch a milk snake, which was cool, and I had never caught one of those before. Lots of garter snakes there that we caught. They were on the farm. On a 408 LS, I need some help picking a cam for boost on E85. What, you got to tell me what turbo you have, what kind of power you're trying to make, what the intake manifold is, like what kind of RPM range you want to run. A 500 horsepower small block Chevy utilizing 110 octane. Which turbo should I use to get 800 horsepower? You should use a G42. Because if you have a 500 horsepower and a small block Chevy, you're going to go beyond 800 horsepower. What supporting mods do I need to run a high lift cam on an LS1, like over 600 lift? I have valve springs already. Well, you're there. Well, why is it you're choosing high lift? I'm curious. 823's rule because that's what I got. Yeah, that's pretty normal for people. You can make a lot of power with an 823 head because to give you an idea, a 706 head flows 240. An 823 flows 300 to 315, so it's a lot more. You want a rowdy daily driver? Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. You want the chop, man. You get the chop. Is there ever a difference between an aluminum L33 5.3 versus an aluminum LH8? I'd need to look at the LH8 to see. I don't know if there's a strength difference. I cracked the rec port heads on my 396. So I threw on a set of peanut ports. Why in the willy did it actually make more power? Was there something wrong with the rec ports? And the peanut ports should also be a big chamber like the rec ports, I would think. So there isn't really a reason why it should make more power. 76, 75 turbo looking for 800 horsepower on a 408. Yeah, you can do that with a tiny little camshaft and small everything. Because 800 horsepower is easily done with that turbo. And on a 408, it's just going to be really responsive because that's a big motor. Budget turbo kit, headers to back. Miata 2-liter. Cam maker as well. Suggestion starter size for my 19-year-old. I don't know who makes cams for Miatas. I have no idea. I don't know if Brian Crower does that. I don't know who does those. I made a bunch of prototype intake manifolds for Miatas. I don't think anything as late as 2008. I can't remember what different generations we were making them for. But if you have a turbo kit, you got everything you need. Mississippi checking in here. God, it's cool to see all the different states here. And we're going to get rid of that one. There. Yeah, when we were in Yosemite, my son saw 3 snakes, and they were these were all within, I don't know, maybe we were walking down a trail, all within like 100 feet of each other. It was pretty cool, which tells me that there's lots more there. And it was cool because I hadn't seen a lot at the higher elevation stuff in the like Tahoe and Placerville and that kind of stuff. I mean, I know that they're there because they're everywhere, but and I hadn't, like I said, hadn't been out looking in Yosemite before, but it's kind of cool. I really want to catch a mountain king snake. Is an L33 worth the extra money versus an LM7? It depends on what you're trying to do. If I was putting it in a Miata, yeah, definitely I would get an aluminum motor. If you're taking an L33 and putting it in a 4,000 or 5,000 pound truck and you save 100 pounds, it's not gonna make any difference. I mean, that's not even one person. So, you know, if you got a person in the passenger seat that you're taking for a ride, your L33 weight's gone. So it doesn't make any difference. Arizona's in the house. Alabama, island at the end of the world. We went by the rim of the world. Hetch Hetchy was the name of one of them we went to. We went to Bridalveil Falls too. Just like I said, the size of the waterfalls and the amount of water flow that's going through there is just tremendous. And we got to go through caves and just all kinds of neat stuff. On a 70 Chevelle, I mean, if you're anything you're trying to do, that the Chevelle could be fairly light. It could be 36 or 3,700, or it could be 2,600. So if you're trying to get weight out of it, if you're trying to make it handle and stuff, and then yeah, if you have the choice between those two, I would pick an aluminum motor. Texas is in the house. Texas has lots of cool snakes too. I'd like to go there. I want to get. I'd like to catch an indigo because they're big, and we only have the biggest snake we have here would be a gopher snake, which is one of the snakes that I caught. I caught a gopher snake in Yosemite, and gopher snakes will get 5-6 feet, a really big one if you find one. I haven't caught anything that big. I haven't caught any gopher snakes that big for quite a while. Not, man, I think since I was a little kid. But they will get that big. But the indigos definitely get that big regularly. Arizona's in the house. Decent temps. Yeah, and the other thing, it was like mid 70s, and Yosemite was nice. Blue racers. They keep flipping between low mount behind the engine turbo and front mount, like on the On3 Coyote kit. Low mount, yes, it's stock officer. More lift, more power, I guess. Do I need a rocker upgrade to run high lift cams? Well, so I would argue against the more lift equals more power thing. So if you tell me what your combination is and what kind of power you're trying to get, then I could steer you in the direction of a camshaft, because lift really isn't where you get the power from the camshaft. Australia has lots of cool snakes, yes, lots of venomous ones. Seems Con has moved primarily to LS builds, but do you have any experience or opinion on Blueprint small block 4 engines? I heard they are now building in-house engine blocks. Yeah, they have their own and have been casting their own blocks. Not just small block Fords, but big blocks, all kinds of stuff. But that's not accurate about the content either, because if you take a look at the 2000 videos I have up, there's different playlists for all the different engine families. So you can take a look at that. There's all kinds of stuff there. I have a choice to either build an LH8 or LH5. It's going to Tahoe and get boosted. Which would you use? It doesn't matter. I mean, they're both good. You're probably not taking it to where you would need to worry about the power output, like how much power are you trying to make. Again, that's the first question for any build. So anybody that has any question, the first thing that you should say is, I want to make 700 horsepower. Then we don't need to be talking about the other things. This happens a lot. I get people that ask me like 7 or 8 qualifying questions, and then I finally get in there like, well, how much power do you want? I want to make 700. Well, why are we talking about cylinder heads and camshaft and intake manifolds and compression and all these things? You need to just put a low buck truck camshaft in there and springs and injectors and put a turbo on there, and boom, you're run boost and you're at 700 horsepower. That's really, really easy. None of that other stuff is really important at all. You don't need different cylinder heads. You don't need a different intake manifold. You don't need any of that stuff. You just need a turbo that does that. Blue racers are pretty ocean-like blue on the bottom and fast. Yeah, the racer snakes are fast. We ran across a few racer snakes, and we have racers here, particularly in Southern California. But we ran across a few racers when I was in Florida looking for pythons. When we were looking for the Burmese pythons, we came across more than a couple of racers. They are fast. 6-liter flat top pistons, 243 heads. Truck Norris cam, dual plane, Holly Stealth, Terminator. What is the most boost I can run on pump 93 non-intercooled? I don't know, because that's not the thing. The non-intercooled, not a good idea. You should have an intercooler even if you're blowing through that, and then it's going to be a function of the timing is going to come into play there a lot. You should start out very, very low and make sure everything's working great at like 6 or 7 pounds, and then worry about going up. So wondering, I have an LS, and all of it is going to be tune related. That's what's going to be the success of that combination. None of the other stuff is going to be limiting. The tune is going to be the limiting thing. I have a 6-liter LQ4 running NA, but down the line I want to add some nitrous. What should I get my rings to for NA right now? if you have it apart, you should put 6 thousandths per, say, 25 or 26 thousandths. And yes, top and bottom are the same for me. My dog killed an 8-foot black indigo. I was trying to crawl under the truck while I was working. Oh, a Belgian, yeah, they're pretty serious. An 8-foot indigo, that's really big. Is there any downside to leaving some timing out of the tune? My plugs show that I could easily add more, but the car is making more than enough power for the index and running heads up. No, it won't hurt anything. You'll just get higher EGTs when you do that. Belgians are cool. That's the John Wick dog. That's the one that Halle Berry, the 2 dogs that Halle Berry had. They're amazing. Their athleticism is amazing. I have a whole set HX40. I want to try the single turbo on the passenger side of the 6-liter. They'll be using only 4 exhaust ports, not all 8 on my G body. I have 96-pound injectors. Okay. We did that. I think that HX40 is bigger than what we had. I think I would try it on something smaller, maybe. I've always felt like GM dropped the ball not making an overhead engine like the Coyote. Have you ever pondered what kind of power potential an LS overhead cam with the same specs, bore, and stroke? I don't know that you'd see a whole bunch more strictly because it's overhead cam. And GM does that now, obviously. But the thing about the LS is they're not head flow limited. I mean, if you look at an LS3 head or an LT1 head, I mean, they don't have, it's not like they have 200 CFM heads and the double overhead, the 4-valve stuff has 300 CFM heads. I mean, the LS already has enough airflow for that. On an LQ4 6-liter, I'm putting a sloppy stage 2 cam in it. What valve spring can I use? You need something that's a 600 lift valve spring. We have valve springs at richardholdnerperformance.com that are, I think that they're BTR 625 lift springs, and those would work for that cam. Don't get bitten by a brown. No, not a brown, not a king brown. There's a Taipan. Not any of those are bad. All of those are bad. You gap your rings at 30 for the Big Bang motors making 1,200 horsepower. Do you recommend that gap for lower power or just putting it in there in case it turned up later? Well, we did turn it up. We turned it up all the way. That's why I was putting 30 plus on those. But 6 to 6.5 thousandths per inch of bore is kind of where you need to be. No update on the GLH motor right now or on the GLH car. Aubrey Belgian and Dutch puppies because the Dutch are the original Belgian. Oh, you breed those? Okay. Received the 42 millimeter turbo today. Question is, horsepower will be more than adequate? Will the hot side work with a 427, 454? Yeah, that turbo will be fine. Stopped by the machine shop today to check on my aluminum Grand National heads. Still waiting on a few things. He said maybe a week or two. That would be cool. I got IKEA with a 1.8 stock mileage, 10-to-1 compression. I don't understand what all of that is saying there. I got IKEA with a 1.8 stock high mileage block, 10-to-1 compression with a Tomica Racing TRTS 1050 running 17 pounds boost. Are those, is that a kind of turbo or something? And a 75 shot? Oh, Kia. Okay, Kia 1.8. And then some sort of aftermarket cam for it, running 17 pounds. Is that turbo just too big for what you're trying to do? Why does it need a 75 shot on that motor? Should help it spool up immediately. Does anyone know how 42-pound injectors and a 340 pump will do on a 96 355 LT4 with headers and a 58mm throttle body and coil and plug? That's more than enough pump and more than enough injector for that motor. You're going to have to tune it, obviously, right? How about doing a 5.3 with a big bang with a 5-bar map sensor? Will we ever do diesel testing? No, not on the engine dyno. How does a 5.7 Hemi car intake compare to a 6.4 car intake? I don't know. I don't think that those both bolt onto the same head port, but I've never tried a 6.4 intake, because when I did all my testing, I wrote my book on the Hemi stuff, that wasn't even available. So I don't know how they compare. I've seen some good results on stock motors, but some people say it isn't worth it with anything past the stock motor. The 5.7 car Hemi intake manifold is really good. I can tell you that. I just don't know about the 6.4 because I haven't tried it. Where can I get a C5, C6 torque tube rebuilt and rear transaxle for 1,000 plus horsepower for my twin charge build? Does anybody have my Vet Life guy? Does anybody have any information for him? It's a good ring gap for 700 horsepower, stock bottom end LM7. If it's a turbo motor or a blower motor or a nitrous motor, then 6 thousandths per inch of bore. What's a simple, cheap way to control timing on a 462 valve? Does MSD make a controller like that? I'm not familiar with it if they do. The stock injectors keep up with a low buck truck cam? No, they won't. There's not enough fuel flow there for the extra power that you get from that camshaft in a 5.3. But we have 50s, the Flex Fuel 50s that are on sale right now. What are some things that you'd be interested in doing, testing that interest you right now? I'd like to run a rotary, a 12A or a 13B, and just put some fun stuff on that. But I'd also like to get all of the things that I have laying around back together and just finish those projects. RPM Motorsports, location of the Corvette build. So guys, some guys want to help you. I've seen a mod 6 box, but I've never used it. Okay. 392 intake bolts right up. OFC, just read that. Just need the SRV actuator to control the active runners. The active runner intake manifold I really like. I tested one of those on a later 5.7 and that worked really well. 22 thousandths. Yeah, I would put 24 to 26 on it. I'm considering a Hellcat charger for my 5.7 Hemi, 2019 Ram. Have you tested it? I have not run a Hellcat blower, but it's an excellent addition to anything, though. How do I stop obsessing about details of my motors that don't matter? You need to stop doing it. There are big things, and then there are little things. The little things, don't worry about that. The little things are all the things that people go online and complain about. It did not spool full boost until 5,500 RPM. Now the 75 shot makes boost at 3,900 and it rips. Yeah, a 75 shot, because what's that 1.8 motor make? I mean, does it, that NA motor only has to make like 150 horsepower or something, right? What are the options to control timing on 4.6? Like I said, I don't know. Other than a standalone management system or controlling the timing with the factory ECU and doing it with whatever way you would do that with whatever HP tuners or whatever helps you control the factory ECU. I think Nissan VK56. Yeah, all of those V8s, the Toyota and the Nissan one would be good. Just order the small turbo to go with your cam. Time to sell out the GT45. Sell off the GT45 on the shelf. Yeah, the GT45 on the shelf. It's like the Elf, man. It's time. We've done a lot of good stuff with them, but the newer turbos are so much better. I'm doing a similar build you did with the 6-liter LS 706 heads, 459 cam. Trying to use HP tuners. Will it pull the same number you got, or does it all matter on the tune? No, it doesn't matter on the tune. Well, if you give it the timing that we gave that one, and you run it at that temperature, and you have the air fuel, if it's just going to be NA at like 12.8, it'll make the same power. Have you seen anyone running the Speed Engineering twin turbo setup for a truck? Thinking about it with my 4.8 with a truck Norris cam, LS6 spring, stock bottom end. I haven't seen any testing on that specific kit on a truck. I would hope that they would have that information, because they should have, people should have used their things, or they should have tested it, I would think. Would you retard timing on a V8 with a 50 horsepower jet or less? We have run 100 shots without pulling timing on lots of stuff. A 75, a lot. I mean, I ran a 75 shot on my Mustang. We never retarded any timing ever. And I ran it on the road course. I ran it on the everywhere, just everywhere you could think of, oval course, everywhere. And we ran that all the time. When we run 100 shot, if we have decent gas in it, we don't normally pull timing, or a lot of times we won't. Sometimes we do, just to show people what happens when you do and when you don't. But you can get away with a lot. If you're on the verge of detonation, not a good idea. Yeah, Sergeant, if you put octane booster in there or a splash of good fuel and you're not near the detonation threshold, it's going to be fine. Crew, what's going on? If we have an NA motor that like we're adding boost to or whatever, and we run it with nitrous, because we've done that a lot, because I try to maximize the amount of dyno time. So we're doing all kinds of testing. So if we have we're running it on race gas or 85 or whatever, and we put nitrous on it, we don't take timing of it. It's fine. Did you ever consider doing an engine assembly video to help people who are building their first engine? I bet you have some amazing knowledge and tips that you could pass on to people. I'm trying to think if I've done any. I've done how to swap cams and things like that, but not a complete engine assembly. In more news, the cylinders on the 300,000+ mile 306 six-cylinder are pristine. Nice. Have you tested any EcoBoost motors? Only on the engine, or only on the chassis dyno, Matt. 114 people here. We need 114 likes. Yeah, there was 121, and now it just dipped way down. How about dual blow-through hollies on a tunnel ram? Yeah, you could do that. An EcoBoost? Yeah, probably not going to hook out EcoBoost, a problematic direct injected EcoBoost, up to the engine dyno. From the factory, it made 123. Ported the head, did exhaust work, ported the intake manifold, lots of other things. 153 to the tire naturally aspirated before the turbo. That's a really, really big jump. That's a lot. Big crazy power. There. 2.7s aren't problematic. What bell housing do those use? Do those use anything that's a normal bell housing? Seen one hold 600 wheel for a year before the guy ran out of oil. Yeah, that's not good. I was impressed by the power output. One of the guys that used to work at West Tech bought a truck that had one in it, and he brought the truck by, and they did some kind of, I think he had some kind of program or something on it maybe, and he ran it, and it was pretty sporty. The EcoBoost are good little motors. Drive like an old 5-liter. Good punch on the bottom that runs out of breath. I would imagine, like most of the factory turbo combinations, that they have a falling boost curve. What heads and blowers did you run on your Mustang? Mine was set up with the original KPA TFS, basically a high port head. And the camshaft that I ran in it was the 224, 232 cam. This was from Crane. And I had a variety of different intake manifolds on there, GT40, and then ported Cobra and ported modified, like they were cutting the back of the plenum off and putting plenum extensions on them, and we tried a few different ones of those. And then we ran a Vortec on it, an A trim, which turned into a B trim, and I also ran an R trim on there for one of the Silver State races. The EcoBoost used the newer common Ford V6 pattern. You've always said factory turbo motors have a lot left in them. Yeah, in most cases, they'll let you turn the boost up. What I've seen, Matt, in a lot of them, though, is you raise the boost, but it's still a falling curve. So you raise it 2 or 3 pounds, let's say, everywhere, but the bottom, the top of the RPM range is still making less boost than the middle. Like you get really big gains in the middle. And then if you keep turning it up and you get to the limit of the turbo, then you have a naturally occurring falling boost curve because it just runs out of turbo. EcoBoost 2.3 is the same bell housing as a Mazda. Same as a 4-liter single ovary cam. I was shocked to see how much 03, 04 Marauders are going for because they have a 4-valve. Those motors are not any different in the wrecking yards I go to than anything else. What are your opinion on, hey, they just don't build them like they used to mentality? Are older engine transmissions really just better? But I don't know which, like, where are you breaking that down at, and what are people referring to? I don't know which ones they're referring to. I can tell you that a muscle car 350 does not even make the power that a junkyard 5.3 makes. So making them better or worse or whatever, we've come a long way in terms of power output. Absolutely. Falling boost. The problem people run into is running too much boost at low RPM. They get knocked and they'll cave the wall. That's a problem. And that's a problem with like boost control sometimes. And when people try to turn the turbo up too much, like I'm going to turn it up all the way because I'm going to get a bunch of power. Well, you're going to get a bunch of power in the middle, like detonation prone part where it's making maximum torque. That's where you're going to break something. If you were doing that out at the top after you're past the torque peak, it's a lot safer out there. But when you're making lots of torque and there's lots of load, that's when problems happen. Would you feel comfortable running 10 pounds on a stock small block Chevy with 850,000 miles on it with no ring gap? No. On E85, maybe. Through a carb EFI and no intercooler. Any tips? Looking for 320 wheel horsepower, a 400 on a budget. I wouldn't go by 10 pounds. Like I don't go by boost. That's not what I do. I would try to run it and make sure that it's right at 5 pounds, let's say, and then see where that ends up. But you wanting to do it on no ring gap and running that high of a boost level, and then doing it on E85 would be better. So you'll be able to run timing in it. So at least you won't have real high EGTs. Blowing through a carb worries me, or even a carb style EFI worries me. The carbureted manifold is not going to have good fuel distribution. So that's the part of that would worry me. Keep hearing you bring up the towns in my area. Older engine transmissions had worse part, but were built smarter to work around the worse parts. Yeah, I don't I don't buy stock in they don't make them like they used to. Big boost Nissan 3.8 liter, 2,500 to 3,500 horsepower. I don't know what you're trying to do. You're trying to challenge somebody or something. I don't know what you're saying there. Earlier single over cam in Australia is unique. Are prices predicted to be stable on cams and turbos or tariff driven? The tariffs will affect everything in the United States. It will affect the price of everything. You've done any testing on TBS 250 blower on a big block Chevy high compression built motor? I with an orange painted block and a specific carburetor. I don't know what TBS is. The blower shop, is that what it is? I don't think I've done a 250 blower from the blower shop. I've done other stuff of theirs. I've done their 871 stuff, I think. And the blower shop does good stuff. I have a Dart SHP Windsor in the works. We'll have EFI. Currently has a 240, 250, 254 cam. Original owner planned on boost for NA. Should I change it? Was thinking something. A 254, a 242, 254, 116 is an NA cam. It will work just fine. It's a big cam. It's bigger than I would use for any boost unless he was trying to make power way, way high out and make like a bajillion horsepower with it. If you want an NA cam and you want to put a tighter LSA on it, I would go more than, I would change it from a 116 to more than a 112. But I would also want to know, are you driving the thing around, or are you racing it, or what are you doing? What's the rest of the motor like? What are the heads? What is the intake manifold? Aspects of they don't build them like they used to are true, but people forget sacrifices need to be made to achieve a higher power. First of all, I don't like generalities. All generalities are nonsense. So what I would want to know is, what things are you talking about? Oh, they don't make them as good as a Pontiac 455 anymore. You know, that's a Pontiac guy saying that, and I love Pontiacs. I love all of them. But that's the thing. That's usually what I get, is a guy that's a Mopar 440 guy. Oh, they don't build them like that anymore. Well, yes and no. Or if you're an LS6 guy, or if you're a Hemi guy, or if you're you're an Indian motorcycle guy, or whatever you are, that's where I kind of get that sentiment mostly from, is that you like that thing. And so we get to put down everything else as a general statement because it's not the thing that I like. Let's see. I'm fighting the urge to just turbo 300. I don't know why you wouldn't do that, but I think if I was going to do that, what I would do is go to the trouble of putting like port injection on it, so you can get the right amount of fuel to all of this. What's the poll for today? Oh, that's right. We don't have that. We only have a minute and a half left anyways. I meant to say it made 133 horsepower to the tire after the head porting, and everything in the head was quite restrictive. And so that makes more sense. The 123 to 133, like 123 flywheel to 133 at the wheels, it's still a pretty good jump, but way more than 153. I want to supercharge it, but a pair of GT20s is so enticing. Yeah, supercharging is also a good idea. Just wondered at how tiny motors made such big numbers relative to what they made years ago, like a B series Honda or a K series Honda. What would be a comparable twin turbo setup to a single 7875? Well, tell me how much power you want to make. Twin 3076s would probably be good for that. You might even could go smaller than twin 3076s for a single 7875. $850,000 miles. Yeah, the LS stuff doesn't wear, but other things do. 408 for the street. Original owner was hoping to drag race and shooting for 1500. That makes sense. That's a lot then. That's a big 1500 horsepower camshaft. So for the street, has it got a dual plane on it, and what heads does it have on it? Have you ever welded up a notch on an old set of 862 heads? If so, can I just use my tech welder and any certain type of aluminum rod? What do you mean the notch? What notch are you trying to do? One GTX 3584 RS is enough on the 300. Yeah, one of those turbos would be way more than that 300 would want to use. Anyone know the approximate limit of an L33 aluminum stock bottom end? 1500. 220 AFR comp heads, those are good. Boss 29, those are good. Ford Australia introduced its new alloy head. Small cam with more boost, you drive more better. Yeah, the 7875 is definitely bigger than a GT45. Dig my old 79 Mustang out. Nice. 302, 351 heads. Back in the day, can I throw cam and turbo looking for 500 horsepower? Cam and turbo size recommend wanting to use an EFI kit. Yeah, you can. That would work. I don't know what, if it's a 79, is it a carbureted manifold on it? 7875 makes 300 horsepower more than a GT45. Yeah, I don't think the first gen would make quite that much more, but the later ones certainly. Twin GT35s or 30s are close to a 7875. Low through carb is cool, yes. Got a dealer option turbo 250 crossflow in the 80s. I believe that an NA K24 swap Miata would be more balanced than a turbo built Mazda Miata. Am I wrong? You can make pretty good NA power with a K24. I just don't know how much money you're going to spend on doing that, though. What happens if you run too big of a cam and stock converter? When you step on the gas, not very much happens. Early 862s have a notch that requires they had to use a special head gasket. I think it was the first 2 years they were made. If the head has a notch, won't the notch go around or does it go around or does it go over the, it's for the, because having the notch is going to be better than not having the notch. And I thought it was for the rivet in the head gasket, in the factory head gaskets. I need a good cheap 2800 to 3000 stall converter. I don't know that that exists. K24 is stronger than 1.8 and definitely higher revving. I agree with your statement about generalities. Are you still doing the podcast style with guests? Yes, I'm going to have guests on here. More and more and more. Just received your GT35 Turbo. What would you recommend for a wastegate? We're working on wastegates right now, but the Turbo Smart stuff is really good. I think D8 351 heads had gone to smaller size 302 size valves. Ping BTR does not make our cams. That's false. Matt, you don't like Hyundai motors? I like the way they look. Honda S2000 stock size turbo. What do you go with? It depends on the. You pick the turbo based on the power, desired power level. So, do you want a 300 horsepower version of that 250 F series motor? Do you want a 300, a 500, a 600? You just pick the turbo accordingly. Derek from L&R, he'd be good. I like Derek. He's good people. Oh, or Jet was it getting the Was it getting the Predator noise? The fan noise or something was going on? I want to make 500 on the 300 forward, but I want to do with twin turbos for exhaust purposes. Yeah, GT20s should do that. 2 of them. It's going to look cool as a twin turbo. Did you know that Hyundai in the early 90s came with the 4G63 engines? I know that Mitsubishi made the Hyundai engines when they first started too. All of the Excels and stuff, those are motors. Ever touch a European engine? Yeah, I've owned a couple of BMWs. My wife has a Mercedes. Heavy Predator noise for a while. Why are the newer Hyundais topping the most stolen car? Because they're easy to steal. That's the problem. We've got 1 more minute. One more minute. GT20s are expensive. I think I have a single one of those. It's either a 20 or 22. I don't think it's a 25. I think it's a 22 for the Sprint. The big power Sprint. That'll be fun. Hope I can remember everything goes. Got to put it back together. GTX 35 on that 6-cylinder would be good. It would be big power. Yeah, take a look at the Hyundai. They'll tell you why it's very, very easy to steal. GT500. Yeah, we've run. I have videos up on that. That GT500 blower. We ran a Ford Racing version, but it's the same thing. It'll be a little high stall for my build. I think 3200 would be top of what I want to go. Yeah, that's a lot. 3200 is getting up into like big cam territory. 3500 definitely. Happy to help. And on that note, guess what? I'm just wondering what the motor and transmission plan for Honda has for 2022 and newer CVT cars. Not enough SI or Type R. It's going to be K series swaps to fill it, sadly. I like the newer Civics. Is the LSA versus the GT500 not cheaper? The LSA is not a cheap deal with everything that you have to get. Well, Prestige, you just need to do 2 GT25s then, and then just make the motor more powerful NA. Cam kit. One of our low buck truck cams, or we have the other one that's 159. The little ripper cam is if you're going strictly for price. 500 horsepower for an S2000. What's turbo? You should get one of our GTX 3584 RS turbos. That's a really good turbo for a K series or an F series. Gonna get a fast 102. Big Bang 300. So I can see what it'll take. Yeah, that's probably not gonna happen. Engine, but not turbocharged. I mean, I know what the result is. I don't know why. But that's the same thing. They're both giving you boost. Meet me in Bowling Green, Kentucky. I'll just fly off there in my private jet. You have fun. That'll be fun. I haven't met any of the other Lingenfelters. I was lucky enough to meet John and spend some time with him. It was awesome. It was very cool. But let me know what happens. And I will see you guys all tomorrow.